I remember me and this babysitter, we ended up actually standing up together and we went to the closet. And once we went inside, she closed the door and said, okay, well, I guess you know the rules, right? Yeah, I think so. Okay, well, let's do this then. And she ended up making out with me and we did the devil's tango. All because we were playing 7 Minutes in Heaven. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another super crazy but embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in grade 10, and in my grade 10 year, I was a massive player. No joke, the only things I cared about was playing video games and playing girls. Other than that, I really had no self-awareness for anything else in my life, and it was a really bad, but at the same time, good life to enjoy. I know it sounds kind of crazy, because every time I tell these stories, I always say I regretted so many of these things, but at the same time, without these amazing things happening in my life, there'd be nothing for me to tell on the internet. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember there was a time in my grade 10 year where I was coming home from school, and this was on a Friday, and I remember I was so excited for the weekend to basically stay home and just grind out Call of Duty because I wanted to get all my guns gold so I can get diamond rank in all my weapons. But right as I got home, I remember when I opened the door, I ended up seeing 2 suitcases just sitting there. I was so confused because I wasn't going anywhere. I already made plans this weekend to stay home and play video games. So right as I saw those 2 suitcases sitting there, I ended up going upstairs to my parents' bedroom and I saw they were packing still. So right as I saw that, I looked at my mom and said, Mom, why are you packing? Bubba, we're going to America. Do you want to come with us? No thanks, Mom. Can I stay home? Okay, but if you stay home, I have to get you a babysitter, Bubba. A babysitter? What? I don't need a babysitter. Mom, I'm 16. Bubba, you don't pay attention in school, so either you come with us or you get a babysitter. At that moment, I was so annoyed, but at the same time, how bad could it be that a babysitter watching me as I'm playing Call of Duty? Like, there's really gonna be nothing for her to really watch. So I ended up agreeing to the babysitter, and my mom always went to this online website where she would hire a babysitter. And let's just say this site was the most random thing ever. Actually, funny enough, I tried searching for it the other day as well, and it seems to not exist anymore, but I don't really blame the website because the type of babysitters that my mom was getting to come over was the worst thing ever. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember I was getting really annoyed that I had to get a babysitter, but I went in my room, I sat down, put on my gaming headset, and started playing Call of Duty. But as I was in the middle of a team deathmatch, I remember my mom ends up opening my door, and she says to me, Bubba, this is your babysitter. Pay attention to her and listen to her, okay? And without even me looking at my door, I ended up just saying, yeah, okay, Mom, I'm in the middle of a game right now. Just talk to you later. Okay, Bubba, be safe. I'm going now. And she ended up leaving. I ended up hearing my front door get slammed shut, and right as I heard that, I ended up turning my head, and all I see was my babysitter look at me saying, so, like, you don't even say goodbye to your mom properly? Like, are you serious, bro? Like, is the game really that important to you? Wait, don't I recognize you? Yeah, we go to the same school, dummy. I'm literally, like, one of the seniors in your own high school, and you have a babysitter? Like, are you good? At that moment, I was so embarrassed, but at the same time, did I really care? No. Even though she was one of the hot grade 12s in my school, I didn't want to give her, you know, any form of attraction because I didn't want her thinking anything weird. So I ended up turning my head again, and I just started playing my Call of Duty game, and she just ended up shrugging her shoulders and went downstairs. I remember a couple hours went by, and I did not hear a peep from the babysitter. No joke, we ended up keeping our separate ways, and we just kept doing our own thing. But as I started to get hungry that 2 hours later, I remember I ended up standing up and actually went downstairs. When I got downstairs, I remember she was on the phone with a couple of friends, and she was saying things like, oh, like, I don't know if I can go. Like, I'm taking care of someone. Well, I don't know. Yeah, he goes to her school. And she kept talking to her friends about me to the point where I ended up grabbing the sandwich that I made and walked up to her saying, hey, like, what are you guys talking about? Oh, Bubba, nothing. Don't worry about it. No, like, what's going on? You can tell me. Like, I'm not that much younger than you. Okay, well, basically there's a huge party happening and like one of the football players are hosting it. I was wondering, can I go? I mean, you can, but like there's cameras around the house, so if you leave, my parents will know. Okay, well, like, what if you ask your parents if I can go? Well, I mean, I doubt they would pay you. Okay, you know what? New plan. How about you tell your parents that I'm taking you out for a bit and then we'll be right back before 12. It'll be super easy. I remember that moment, I didn't really know what to say because me going to a party back in high school wasn't something unusual. Like, I've done it many times, but the only thing I was worried about was getting in trouble with my parents. So what I ended up texting my parents was, hey mom, hey dad, I just want to let you guys know I'm gonna quickly go to the grocery store because we ran out of some food. So me and the babysitter are gonna be out, okay? My parents ended up saying okay, and that's when me and her, we ended up leaving. We got inside her car since she was a senior and had a way better car car than me, and we ended up driving to this party. And right as we pull up to the driveway of the party, no joke, there were so many different people from my high school there. It was insane. Like, no joke, there were like people in the front lawn, there were people inside the house, there was people in the backyard of the house, there were people upstairs. Like, this party was like full on packed with a bunch of women and a bunch of cool kids from my high school. I remember when I saw this, I was so excited. And I remember right as I get out of the car, my babysitter ends up looking at me saying, okay, Bubba, remember, before 12, we have to be at this car. You understand me? No matter what, we have to make sure we keep ourselves accountable because I'm not trying to get in trouble. Yeah, don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine, is what I told her. And that's when me and her, we ended up going to this party. We ended up hanging out with a bunch of people. And also we did, you know, do a lot of crazy things that I cannot say on the internet. But now comes the craziest part of the story, because what ended up happening next, honestly, was so bizarre. Because I remember in the middle of the party, there was a girl that walked up to me. Now, it wasn't my babysitter. It was just some random girl. And she looks at me and says, hey, Bubba, we're all playing like a bunch of different party games in the other room. Do you want to join us? Yeah, sure. And I remember I ended up following this girl to this room. And I remember there were a bunch of women and like 3 other guys. And then there was also my babysitter that was in there. I remember we were all so confused on what was going on. And that's when someone pulled out a bottle that they were drinking from earlier. And he ends up saying, okay, guys, I think we all know the rules to 7 minutes in heaven. At that moment, I started to kind of panic because I ended up looking at my babysitter and she was staring right dead into my eyes as if we did a big mistake walking into that room. And well, I remember we ended up playing a couple rounds and obviously like me and her, we didn't get chosen yet. And that's when it ended up happening. They asked me to spin the bottle. I spun it and yeah, it landed on my babysitter. I remember I ended up staring at my babysitter once again straight into her eyes and she stared at me. And for some reason, this babysitter like was kind of hesitating, but there was a pretty obvious point where she was trying to make it seem like she was one of the cool girls, I guess, and stood up and said, okay, Bubba, let's go to the other room. Come on. Wait, really? Yeah, let's go. She ended up grabbing me by my wrist and we ended up going into the closet. And when we walked into that closet, no joke, she looked at me and said, okay, Bubba, we have 7 minutes to do whatever you want. Just what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, it's a part of the game, silly. We're supposed to make it look like we did the Devil's Tango. So like, I don't know, let's just do it. Okay. At that moment, me and her, we got straight to it. We made out and we did the Devil's Tango. And no joke, after 7 minutes were up, we ended up hearing everyone outside the closet going, okay, guys, your minutes are up. And me and her, we ended up getting all our clothes on as fast as possible. And we walked out of that closet and it was very, very obvious we did it. At that moment, one of the guys ended up walking up to me and patting me on the back saying, let's go. A sophomore hitting up a senior. Now that is iconic. And I felt like I was actually pretty cool. From there, I remember time was running out and it was almost like 12 o'clock at night. So me and my babysitter, we ended up heading straight to her car. And when we sat inside, we just looked at each other super awkwardly. And that's when I said, honestly, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. No, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not complaining. Like, you were pretty big. Thanks is what I told her, super weirdly saying like, thank you after that weird statement. I don't really know. It was a lot. And me and her, we ended up getting back to my place and we went to bed as if nothing happened. To this day, me and her have not spoke about this, but at the same time, she does follow me on IG. So maybe you guys could find her. I remember my babysitter ends up taking me to the bathroom and literally goes on her knees, looks straight into my eyes and says, Bubba, if you think you're as freaky as me, do it then, right now. Wait, what? What do you want me to do? Oh, I think you know what I want, Bubba. What? And then what ended up happening next, I gotta say, must have been extremely illegal. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another embarrassing, I gotta say, crazy story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was actually my final year of high school. Yeah, my grade 12 year. Now, you guys are probably wondering, how in the world did I end up with a babysitter in my grade 12 year? Well, let me explain. In my grade 12 year, graduation was coming up. And honestly, graduation's such a big deal to me and my parents that I remember I started to stress out a lot. Because throughout my high school years, I was always exploring, doing crazy things, and saying yes to the most bizarre of adventures I would have, which to be fair, a lot of them are told on this channel. And well, it never actually led me to actually focusing on my actual schoolwork and things that are more important. Like, no joke, if I had an opportunity to hang out with a girl or finish my science project, I'd probably end up going out with that girl and being late and thinking last minute what to do for a science project of the day that was due. I've had a lot of these moments, and honestly, it led to me actually getting a massive phone call to my parents when I got home one day in my grade 12 year. Because I remember one day when I entered inside my house, I ended up up hearing my mom on the phone. And when I went to the living room to see what was going on, I ended up seeing my mom staring at me dead in the eyes as I walked in there. And she looks at me, covers the phone real quick, and says, Baba, after I'm done with this phone call, I need to talk to you. Okay, is what I said to her. And I remember she ends up continuing her phone call. Now, I didn't understand what was going on. And honestly, I was stressing out like crazy. No joke, I was so stressed out from what was going on that I guess part of me already knew that it was about me failing basically almost 3 of my classes. But anyways, I remember I went upstairs to my room and I turned on my Xbox and started playing Call of Duty. And as I was playing Call of Duty, like 20 minutes later, my mom ends up barging into my room saying, Baba, turn off your dumb video games. She ends up turning off my Xbox and looks at me and says, Baba, I need to understand. Why are you failing your classes? Where are you going in school? Why are you skipping class? Mom, I've been busy. Busy with what? Your job is literally just to go to school and come back. Nothing more, nothing less. Yeah, I understand that, Mom. It's just I've been like, you know, distracted. Distracted with what? You're a 17-year-old boy in your graduation year. You have nothing to be distracted about, is what she kept saying to me. And honestly, I didn't know what to say back to her. I started to stress out, and honestly, I ended up looking at her saying, Mom, listen, I promise I'll focus more on my schoolwork and I will graduate this year, okay? No, you have to graduate this year, okay? No more funny business. And that's when my mom ends up leaving my room and slamming the door shut. Now, I thought that was all that was gonna happen, but no, things got a lot worse because I remember when I went downstairs for dinner, I ended up sitting down with my family, and my family all looked at me knowing that my mom was really upset at me for failing most of my classes. And as dinner continued, no joke, things just kept getting more awkward and awkward to the point where my dad ends up saying, so Baba, I don't know how to tell you this, but me and your mom were talking, and we know what's going on at school, and if I'm going to be honest with you, you are not coming to the family vacation next week. Wait, what? What do you mean I'm not going to the family vacation? Well, Baba, you're not focusing on school, and I'd rather you graduate than come with us on vacation. What? But you guys are going to be gone like all weekend. Like, I wanted to go. Well, you should have thought of that when you're failing your classes and going on these silly adventures. Like, what are you? Diego the Explorer? I remember my siblings started laughing, and no joke, I just kept getting more upset to the point where I actually even stood up and went straight up to my bedroom. I went up to my bedroom, slammed my door shut, and I actually started opening my textbooks to see if I could at least do something to get ahead. But then I remember after dinner ended downstairs, my mom ends up coming upstairs to my room, and she looks at me and says, Baba, can I talk to you? I thought you said everything you need to say downstairs, Mom. No. We need to talk about what's going to happen this weekend. Yeah, I know. I'm not going. No, Baba. Not only are you not going, but we're having a babysitter take care of you. At that moment, my eyes opened wide, and I remember looking at my mom going, what? You're telling me that I'm gonna have a babysitter and I'm almost 18? Yeah, that's what happens when you don't pay attention to school. Going on these silly adventures as if you're Diego the Explorer. Mom, enough with Diego the Explorer, okay? I get it. But you cannot give me a babysitter. I remember I kept yelling this at her, and my dad ends up coming in intervening. And obviously, things got a bit more heated, but I'm not gonna say any more other than my mom and dad ended up getting me a babysitter while I was 17 years old. But what ends up happening next, well, I think this is the part that everyone's been waiting for. Because I remember the next day was a Friday, and I ended up going to school super upset, and the whole day I couldn't stop thinking about how my parents were getting me a babysitter. And I remember every class that I went to, my teachers ended up handing me extra assignments I could do so I could make sure I graduate for my grade 12 year. And as I was picking up these assignments and finally got home, I closed the door, went up straight to my room, and started basically using the internet to basically answer all the dumb questions that the homework has for me. But then that's when the doorbell rang. And I remember when the doorbell rang, I went downstairs, I opened the door, and that's when I ended up seeing my babysitter. Now, this babysitter, she looked actually pretty normal. I'm not gonna lie, like, she didn't seem like anyone out of the ordinary. But then I remember when she walked in, she looks at me and says, aren't you like too old to be babysat? Yeah, I know, I am, but honestly, you're just here to make sure I do my homework and not go on some crazy adventures. Crazy adventures? What are you, Dora the Explorer? Bro, I don't know why everyone was talking about Dora the Explorer. To be honest, I think Dora the Explorer, the movie, was coming around this time, so everyone kept making the joke about it, even to the point where this babysitter was making jokes about it. But going on, I remember I ended up basically ignoring the babysitter, and I went up straight to my room and sat down and started doing my homework. But then this babysitter had different plans of her own, where I remember she ended up just sitting in the living room, turning on the TV, and just watching some random shows on Netflix. And then one thing led to another. I remember as I was doing my homework, I ended up basically pausing my music, and that's when I heard what she was watching. And no, she wasn't watching no ordinary TV shows like Dora the Explorer. She was actually watching something else that had a lot of really sus noises. That's when I ended up standing up and going down the stairs, and I looked and saw that she was watching a movie that had something really disgusting on it. Now, I'm gonna say this only once, and YouTube, please do not demonetize me, because I swear this is all for educational purposes. But basically, this show that she was watching had someone getting a golden shower. Now, if you guys don't know what that is, I cannot say anything anything more than that, so good luck and figure it out on your own. But I remember when I was watching this, I ended up walking up to her saying, yo, what are you watching on my TV? Yo, turn that off. Aren't you like supposed to be like going upstairs and doing homework? Yeah, but I'm not gonna let you watch that on the TV. It's gonna be saved and my parents are gonna think I watched it. So like, don't your parents think you're a freak already? Like, aren't you in high school? Yeah, I'm in high school, but I'm not like a weirdo. Oh, so you're not a freak then, is what she says to me, kind of flirtatiously. That's when I looked at her and said, what? No, I'm just not weird. And that's when she kept getting closer and closer to me saying, honestly, how close are you to becoming 18? At that moment, I looked at her and I stepped one step back and I'm like, yo, you need to chill out. And the words that came out of her mouth next were really, really weird because she ended up saying to me, oh, so you're not a freak then. You're just a basic vanilla boy. Basic vanilla boy? What? Do you know who you're talking to? At that moment, I started pulling ego a little bit because to be fair, my high school years were literally all about me doing the Devil's Tango. And all the crazy adventures I've had were literally about me doing the Devil's Tango. So I have no idea what this girl was trying to yap about, but I'm gonna be so for real here. She had no right to say that I wasn't a freak. And when I started to tell her that, she ended up basically grabbing me by my hand and running me up the stairs towards my bathroom that was down the hallway from my room. And when she brought me in there, she went on her knees and said, okay, Bubba, let's see how much of a freak you are. Do it. Wait, what? What do you want me to do? Come on, Bubba, give it to me. Give you what? At that moment, she grabbed my pants, and that's when I ended up pushing her off me and went straight to my room and locking my door. I locked it, and that's when this babysitter at first went totally silent. But then 3 seconds later, slam, slam, slam. She started slamming my door like crazy. I started to panic, and then after a while of the babysitter just yelling, oh, I knew you're not a freak. I knew you couldn't do it to me. Seriously, whip it out for me, Bubba. I want to see it. And that's when I knew this babysitter was not only a freak, but she wanted way too much. I remember I ended up hiding in my room for like 20 more minutes afterwards, and she ended up going back downstairs watching her TV show. And my thought was, you know what? I need to focus on school so I can make sure I graduated. Luckily, I did actually end up graduating, which here's a photo of my graduation if you haven't noticed already. And yeah, honestly, I gotta say, I'm really happy that this babysitter ended up keeping to herself after, but never again will I expect my parents to get me another babysitter. And nor did they ever after that because, well, I became an adult. But if you guys think the story is totally fake and you guys think I'm crazy, then follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. I remember randomly waking up and I saw my babysitter literally with the camera taking photos of me with the flash on. I ended up looking at her saying, what are you doing? Oh, Bubba, you look so cute when you sleep. Wait, what? Are you good, bro? And at this moment, I realized my babysitter was taking photos of me sleeping. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and I was actually in my grade 9 year. And in grade 9, I'm not gonna lie, I was a pretty basic kid. And by basic, I mean, I liked all the things that most grade 9 kids in my age liked. Like, for example, from Pokemon to Call of Duty to riding their bicycle and doing basically all the childish things you would normally want to do. But I think the most iconic thing for me was playing Call of Duty. I think that was like the most iconic thing for me back in grade 9. So comment down below what was your favorite game in your grade 9 year. But other than that, continuing on with the story, I remember as I was one day in my house playing Call of Duty in my grade 9 year, I remember my mom ends up coming inside my room. She comes inside my room and says, Bubba, do you plan on getting off the game? What? No, I'm playing team deathmatch. What's going on? Bubba, I need you for something. Okay, well, you can need me later. I need to finish this game. Bubba, just pause the game. Mom, I can't pause an online game. The amount of times I had to tell my mom that was severely insane. But then afterwards, my mom ends up coming up behind my Xbox and unplugging it. I was so confused on why until my mom says, Bubba, I need to talk to you downstairs right now. Oh, fine, mom, is what I said. And I remember I ended up going down the stairs. When I got down the stairs, I remember I saw my older sister and also my dad sitting in the living room. And he said, Bubba, I need to talk to you about something. Yeah, what's up, dad? Okay, well, me, your sister, and your mom, we're gonna be going for a couple days. Okay, where are you guys going? Can I come? No, Bubba, you need to stay home and make sure the house is safe. Oh, you want me to protect the house? Okay, yeah, I can do that. No problem. I remember every time my parents would leave me alone in the house, I really wouldn't mind it. But knowing that my parents were going to leave me for a couple days in the house, I got pretty excited. Thinking about all the stuff I could do without my parents at home. And actually, the only thing I could really think of that I would do would be playing video games. So I guess it wasn't that exciting, but still, it felt pretty manly to be in the house alone. But then afterwards, my mom ends up looking at me saying, honey, are you going to tell him what we're going to plan on doing? Wait, what do you mean plan on doing? Bubba, we're getting you a babysitter. At that moment, my jaw dropped. No joke. I was so like in shock that my parents were going to leave me with a babysitter. Because don't get me wrong, they've done this before. But back
back when I was a baby, right? So now that I'm getting left with a babysitter in my grade 9 year, like I was in high school. I was a full-on man. I had puberty hair. Like I was a man, bro, and there was no way I wanted to have a babysitter. But still, my mom ends up looking at me and she looks me right in the eye and says, Bubba, you're going to have a babysitter and you're going to obey her. What? But dad just said I was the man of the house. And my dad looks at me and just starts chuckling, laughing, saying, Bubba, you are the man of the house. We're also gonna have a woman of the house. I remember I looked at him with such a blank face, just annoyed with him saying that. But at the same time, my dad was always the type of person to try to cheer me up in the most, I guess, angry of situations I've been in. But other than that, I remember afterwards, I ended up going straight back up to my room. I was upstairs angry in my room, just having a major child tantrum. And as I was getting really upset, I remember my mom ends up walking in. My mom walks in saying, Bubba, if I plug in your Xbox again, will you please stop yelling? Yeah, sure, mom, is what I said. And my mom is unplugging it back in. I guess my mom knew that my biggest weakness back when I was younger was my Xbox 360. And I think to this day, still, video games are probably my biggest weakness that let me, I guess, have a more relaxing time in my mind. But I remember after that, the next day ends up finally coming around. And when I woke up the next morning, I ended up looking around and I ended up walking down the stairs. And I remember walking around going, Mom, Dad, are you guys home? Hello? And as I was walking to every room, I realized that my parents weren't there. So I ended up going outside to my driveway and I saw that there was a bright pink smart car and my parents' car was gone. And as I was looking at the smart car, I ended up looking around it going, what in the world is this? And that's when my babysitter ends up coming out the front door saying, oh, there's the cute little sleeper. Hi, Bubba. That's my car. Oh, is what I said. And that's when I realized my babysitter was already at my house when I was asleep. Obviously, I didn't care because I was fast asleep and she didn't really annoy me nor wake me up, which I'm happy about. But I remember I ended up basically going back inside the house and I introduced myself. I said, hi, my name is Bubba. Nice to meet you. Hi, how are you doing? It's nice to meet you. Oh my goodness. I saw you were sleeping and like, honestly, I felt really bad. So like, I didn't want to wake you up, but like, hey, like, how's it going? Good. Just a little tired. Do we have coffee? What? Oh my goodness. Wait, you drink coffee? You should not be drinking coffee. Okay, you know what? How about this? I got a new plan. For some reason, this babysitter was the most perky babysitter I've ever like had. But I remember she ends up taking me to the kitchen of my house and she ends up making me a hot chocolate. Which, don't get me wrong, maybe she's right. I was not supposed to be drinking coffee at my grade 9 year, but still, I was the man of the house. She had no right to tell me what to do. Well, I mean, she kind of did because she was my babysitter, but that's not the point. Going on, I remember after the hot chocolate, me and her, we ended up basically going over like all the house rules and everything she had planned for me. And then afterwards, I remember out of nowhere, she ended up going into her purse and she pulls out her camera. And before anyone says anything, no, this was no normal camera that, you know, a mom would bring to a football game. Like, this was a full-on DSLR HD Pro Max, like flash on the top with a Rode microphone on it kind of camera. Like, more expensive than most of the YouTubers you guys watch nowadays. And I remember when I saw this, I looked at her and said, is that your camera? Oh, yeah, I use it for like work and stuff. What do you do? Are you a YouTuber? Oh, no, I wish. No, what I do is I just do like personal photography. But you said you do it for a job. Well, like, it's also a job. Like, just don't ask questions, okay? Is what she said, really upset. And I remember I just went, okay, I won't ask. I'm not gonna say anything. And I ended up going up to my room playing Call of Duty. Out of nowhere, I remember I ended up playing Call of Duty and I was up in my room for almost 4 hours straight. This was normal for me since, you know, I was a professional Call of Duty player. And since I was in my room for so long, my babysitter must have thought I fell asleep because out of nowhere, my babysitter ends up slowly opening my bedroom door. And she opened it so slow with her camera out with the light on. And she basically walks in, trying to sneak in until she saw me awake on my Xbox. She looks at me and I look at her, totally confused on what she was trying to do, and says, oh, sorry, I was just checking in on you. Are you good? Yeah. Why is your camera light on? Oh, don't worry about it. This was like, just, you know, I was just testing it. I just bought it. It's new. Okay. Well, I mean, can you not, you know, turn on your camera in my house? Well, okay, yeah. You know what? Just don't worry about it. And then she leaves my room really awkwardly. I had no idea why her camera light was on, but honestly, I wasn't gonna ask any more questions. But I think what ends up happening next, I gotta say, was the most weirdest thing possible. Because I remember out of nowhere, I ended up going downstairs to basically see what was going on, since I heard the TV put on loud in my living room. And usually babysitters don't usually use my house TV unless they were like really that bored. So I ended up going downstairs to see what she was watching. And when I got down there, I remember I ended up seeing my babysitter on her camera going through photos. And when I snuck up behind her just to see what she was looking at, I realized all the photos that she was going through were of photos of people sleeping. I was really confused, and that's when I said, yo, who's that photo of that guy sleeping? Oh, Bubba. She ends up shutting her camera really quickly and says, oh, nothing. It was for a school project. You were studying people sleeping at school? Yeah, we were just like doing like a test on like reactions of people being asleep. Yeah, you know, it's a big girl thing. Just don't worry about it. Okay. Well, that's kind of of weird, don't you think? It's only weird if you think it's weird, Bubba. And she starts getting offended. I had no idea what was wrong with her, but once again, I decided to basically just leave her alone and go back upstairs to my room and play Call of Duty. And I remember one thing led to another. As I was playing Call of Duty for another like 4 hours straight, I ended up getting super tired and I ended up passing out with my headset on. I fell asleep and I still managed to put myself under my blanket, but as I was asleep, closing my eyes, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing a flashing light. And that's when I opened my eyes and I saw my babysitter holding a camera right up to my face and taking photos of me. And at that moment, I woke up and I stood up saying, "What are you doing? Why are you taking photos of me?" Bubba, just don't worry about it. It's like I said, for a school project. No, give me your dumb camera. I remember I ended up grabbing the camera out of her hand and I ended up going to my balcony and holding it over my balcony. And that's when she ended up confessing everything to me. She ended up going on her knees and saying, "No, wait, Bubba, don't drop the camera, please. Listen, I can explain, okay? Okay, explain. I'm waiting." And that's when she ends up saying, "I take photos of like kids when they're sleeping and I post it on the dark net." At that moment, I looked at her and my eyes opened wide. And that's when I said, "What?" Yeah, and I get like paid for it like full time, okay? Just please, just don't drop my camera. It's really expensive. I ended up looking at the camera and I ended up looking at her and that's when I dropped it. I dropped the camera. And then I remember as the camera fell, she ended up basically literally jumping off my balcony for it. It was actually really crazy how she did that, but honestly, I guess for some reason, she just really cared about that camera. And as she jumped off, she ended up landing on the pavement of my driveway. And yeah, let's just say cops got involved. My parents were asking what was going on. Until apparently, for some reason, the cops ended up thanking me and my family for finding this woman because she was a wanted criminal. Yeah, don't know where my parents hired her from, but honestly, if you guys think I did the right thing dropping the camera off the balcony, then fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.